whereas other members have mentioned there's declining trust in the current government. There remains a great deal of trust in your office in terms of its ability to raise these questions and to identify whether money is being spent appropriately and whether performance objectives are being achieved. We've also seen in the last few years in particular incredible growth in the size of government. The federal government is trying to do more and more things. They're spending more and more money. The deficits we've seen in recent years have been exorbitant. And it would seem to me reasonable to say that the size of the Auditor General's office should be proportionate to the size of government. That is, if government is trying to do more things than it did in the past, the Auditor General should have the capacity to audit more because there's just more activity going on in government. Would you say that that philosophy, that the size of your office should increase in proportion to the size of government in terms of your ability to do audits, is that the philosophy that has guided funding for your office, or is there an expectation that that you would maintain the same size and the same capacity to do audits despite the growth in government that we've seen in recent years?
So I think one funding model could be one linked to government spending, but then the reverse is also true, as there's reduction in spending and then you would drive down the size of the office, which I think would not necessarily be in line with the intended goal of ensuring good accountability. So I do think that the spending of the government needs to be considered, because you're absolutely right. As there is more spending, there is more work. We do the financial audit work, and the financial audit work, if the pool is larger, then it takes a little longer to get that work done. So I would just caution sort of linking it, because then you have ups and downs that are really unpredictable. And then that doesn't ensure a consistent delivery of reports to help support Parliament.
So I guess one way to respond to that is there should be some evenness.
Just 1 second, Mr. Genuis. I'm not going to stop the clock here. Mr. McCauley, Ms. Yip, could you just take the conversation to the side of the room? I don't mind conversations happening, but you do need to pull away. It is distracting to the witnesses and I think even to the member. So back to you, Mr. Genuis. This
is going to be a compelling line of questioning, colleagues. So you better, just.
I would expect nothing less, and you have 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. I guess one way to respond to that is say, of course, there should be a certain evenness. It shouldn't be jumping around erratically. But in a general sense, if government is doubling in size, there should be some over time proportionate growth in capacity to look at the full range then of all these new activities government is doing, and we've seen this through COVID spending. But is it fair to say that as parliamentarians are desperate to see more auditing happen in various areas, and there's a proliferation of scandals and questions around different areas of spending, that your funding has not kept up with those demands and those needs?
I think Andrew will probably add to this, but I know back in 2017, because I was in the office when Mr. Ferguson asked for additional funding. At that time, I believe that government spending had gone up 30% or so. Is that correct? And that our funding had remained stable. So absolutely, that means there's more spending for us to audit on the financial side, but there's new programs for us to audit to help ensure accountability. So I believe your analogy is correct. As government spending goes up, there is a need for us to have more capacity to do more work, or there will be work that we will have to not do in order to cover new programs.
And just to put a fine point on this, who determines how much money you get, and should we have a process whereby your budgets are set more independently?
Well, whether or not we believe we need more funding is something that we initiate, but then the decision as to whether we receive that funding is subject to the same process and mechanism that every department in the federal public.
So it's decided by the government, essentially. The people that you're auditing get to decide whether you have the resources that you think you need in order to audit them effectively.
So there's central agencies that play a role, but in the end, it goes to Parliament who votes on it. Yes.
Right.
Thank you very much. That is your time. Ms. Shanahan, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and again, I thank the witnesses for appearing here today on these important questions. I would like to have a better understanding, though, regarding this the mandate for collective bargaining. The Auditor General mentioned that her office needs to work within a mandate, and so I'll address my question to Mr. Diotte of the Treasury Board. How does that work? The Treasury Board works together with PCO to provide a mandate for collective bargaining.